Alright, hi everybody and welcome to another tutorial of Swap Pop Gaming. So let's see what we're going to work with today. I'm going to press the play button here, and what we're going to do is we're going to do a simple drag and drop functionality. We have two columns here. We got the red stack and we got the green stack, and we can drag over these stacks over to one side and we can drag them over to the other side. Not a problem here. They keep their values, their names, and their values. And we will also have a functionality where we can drag off into space here, and we're randomly populating the stack it's coming from. So we can drag this alpha and we can move it outside, and we'll repopulate in the same stack that it's supposed to be in, even if we are outside the boundaries. So that works awesome. So there's a lot to do here, so let's get to it. Right, I have now deleted all my files, so we can recreate everything here. And where we are right now, we have a blank project, and basically all I have is I have a map that I saved out, and this is where I'm going to do it, the drag and drop here. And so let's get started. So we're going to start out by creating a new HUD widget. We're going to go down to user interface here and widget blueprint. And we're going to have a user widget, and we're going to call this test widget. Let's open this guy up. Let's add an horizontal box here. There we go. We're going to compile, we're going to save, and we're going to go into our level blueprint here. I'm going to create widget. I'm going to take our test widget. I'm going to add this to viewport. Perfect. The next thing I want to do is I want to get the player controller. And we're going to set input mode, UI only. We're going to drag off this player controller again. We're going to set show mouse cursor, and we're going to set that to true. Connect these guys up, boom, boom. All right, compile and save. And going back to content browser, we're going to right click, we're going to have a user interface, and we're going to create a new user widget, and we're going to call this left Dropbox. Let's open this guy up. We're going to add an overlay to this. And we're going to add an image on top of the overlay. We can drag this to the max. We're going to change the color here to a slight red pinkish color. Like that. That's okay. I'm going to add a scroll box. And this we're going to stretch out. I'm going to push this is variable button as well. Let's compile and save this. Go back to the content browser. We're going to drag off this and make another copy. And this one we're going to call right Dropbox. Let's open this guy up, and we're going to go in here and change the color to a more of a green color. Okay, let's compile and save that. And we're going to go into a test widget, into our horizontal box here. So we're going to have two boxes. We're going to have the left Dropbox. I'm going to put that on top of that. We're going to have the right Dropbox. I'll put that there. There we go. So the left one is going to be on the top and the right on the bottom. And we're going to fill these guys out. There we go. So take up 50-50. Let's compile, save, and go back to the content browser. Now we're going to create the actual item that we're going to drag back and forth. So right click and go to user interface, widget blueprint, user widget, and we can call this dragged item. Double click and open this guy up. We're going to add an overlay to this. Drag that on top of that. And we're going to add an image. Put that on top of that. And this image we are going to tint into a blue color. Let's see. Let's stretch it all the way here. And let's see, we're going to go a little darker there. Perfect. And now we're going to put in a horizontal box. Top of the overlay here, and the horizontal box we need to stretch to the max. And then we're going to add a text to this horizontal box. So now this is going to be the item name. So we can change the text here to item name. And we're going to have it at auto and left horizontal and center in the vertical. So it ends up down there. I'm going to also go down to justification and make sure that it's dragged to the left. I want to change the size set to 36 and outline size to 2. I'm going to also set the shadow offset of 2 pixels plus 2 pixels. I'm going to change this to a alpha of 1. There we go. Let's copy the item name here and paste it on top of the horizontal box so we get the two next to each other. Now I'm going to go up here to the top. We're going to add a right padding here of 15 pixels. And we're going to set this to fill and horizontal alignment to right. As well as going to put the justification to center. Let's open up the graph here and add a couple of variables here. We're going to have the item name and item amount. So the first one is item name. And it's going to be a text. And the second one is item amount. Also going to be a text. And these two need to have instance editable and expose and spawn, both of them. So we set it whenever we are creating the actual widget. Let's push and compile. Then we're going to go back into Designer and we're going to take the item name here and we're going to bind it to item name. And we're going to change the text here. We can actually change it item amount and bind this to item amount there. All right, save and compile. Now let's go back to content browser here. We're going to add a structure. This will be a struct that will hold a basic structure on what information our array will need to contain. So we want the structure to basically have two variables. It's going to be a item name and item amount. So let's get to it. So under blueprints here, we have structures. Let's create a structure there. We're going to call it my item struct. Let's double click and open this up. So we're going to have item name first. And this is going to be of type name. And then we're going to add another one, and this is going to be item amount. And this is going to be an integer. So save that, and then we're going to close it. Let's go to the left drop box, because this is where we're going to start by spawning the first boxes that we can drag around with. So let's go into the graph. So let's create an array of items that we can actually work with. And we're going to create it under event construct here. Can delete that one. We don't need that. We don't need the tick either. So I'm going to add a new variable called items. And this is going to be of the type my item struct. And this is going to be an array of those. So we have more than one. We're going to drag one of these out here. And we're going to put an add node. I'm going to add to this one. And we're going to drag from this one. And we're going to make my item struct here. So these are the two variables that we talked about, that we set up in our struct. So let's just put in a first name here, and we're going to call it alpha, and we're going to have a value of 20. Right now it doesn't really matter, but I want to have different values for every item. So let's copy these a couple of times. 3, 3, and one more time. Go. All right, so Bravo and 72. Let's see. Caesar 16. Delta 55. Echo. Let's call it 99. Right, we're gonna connect these guys up. All right, this is going to be our item array. So we're going to mark all of these just to clean everything up a little bit. We're going to collapse that to a function. We're going to call this make array. There we go. All right, let's drag out a new version copy of this items. And we're going to do a for each loop. So now we're going to populate the left drop box with the array. So from this loop body, we need to create a widget. The widget we need to create is the dragged item. And we have our array element here. We're going to break that into the structs. And let's see, get this a little bit room. And the item name, we're going to drag into item name here. And the item amount, we can drag it into item amount. And we'll automatically change those values into correct values. Now, we're going to take our scroll box here. And we are going to add the children. Add the child. Add the child, and that will be our widget. Perfect. So compile and save that. All right, let's test this out and see if it works. Yes, we have our Alpha, Bravo, Caesar, Delta, Echo, and they got their individual numbers that we gave them. All right, perfect. So it works. Let's go back to our left box here. I'm gonna mark these guys up. We're gonna collapse them into a function. Add starting array. Yeah, that'll be fine. Grab that and put that there. All right, now we're going to start working with drag and drop functionality. So in the content browser, we're going to add a new type of node, and we're going to do a blueprint class. And in our all classes, we're going to search for something called drag and drop operation. Get that there, select that, and we're going to call this my item drag and my item drag and drop. I'm gonna double click on this and open it up. So here we can give all the variables that we want to pass through with our drag and drop operation. And in our drag and drop operation, to start out, we want to add the item name and item value. So we're going to add a couple of variables here. We're going to start with item name. And this is going to be of type text. And we're going to have an item amount. And it's also going to be of text. And these need to be instance editable and exposed to spawn, both of them. And that is so we can actually pass in the values into this drag and drop operations. So we can close this down for now after we compiled and saved it. Let's go into our graphs of our dragged item. And we're going to open up our event graph here. We are going to add the functionalities now here for the drag and drop. So in the function, we're going to hover over here and get the override drop down here. We're going to start by adding a override to the on mouse button down. There we go. And we will also add the on drag detected on this one. On drag detected. Get that. So we got these two new functions we got to work with. I'm going to start with on mouse button down. We're going to drag off mouse event here and get detect. Drag if pressed. And the drag key, which key are we going to use? We're going to use the left mouse button. Get that there. So all we have to do here right now is we're going to connect these two guys here. And we're going to drag this one down there. Perfect. Compile and save. And close that down and go back to on drag detected. What are we going to do when we're actually dragging? We're clicking and we're dragging. So what is going to happen? Well, first of all, we want to create a new drag and drop operation. So create drag and drop operation. And we are going to change the class here to my item drag and drop. So we get access to our variables that we wanted here. And we're going to take our item name. I'm going to pass that in there, and we're going to take our item amount and pass that in there. We are also going to set the pivot here to mouse down, so it actually starts where we're pushing down the mouse. The next thing we want to do is we want to have the drag visible. What is it supposed to look like when you're dragging? And you can actually do whatever you want. You can create new widgets that are going to look totally different. So you can set whatever widget you want. However, we are going to get a reference to self, because I just want the same widget basically to be moved over the screen when we're dragging it back and forth. And we're going to connect these two guys. There we go. And we're going to drag this return value and push that into operations. I'm going to compile and save, and then we're going to test it out and see what happens. So we have our little node is flying with our mouse, and you see that it got that alpha and it got that 20, and it's moving around. As long as I hold down my left mouse button, it's flying with it. Whenever I release it, it disappears. See that? Perfect. So that is working fine as it should. And you see that it's moving the same widget. It's just a compressed version of it because it doesn't have any bounding box that can drag it out. But that's exactly what I want at this point. All right, you can close that up. So the next thing I want to do is when I pick it up, I want it to be removed from the list. And what this guy needs to know is what list does it want to remove it from. If we take this and play it again, I want this alpha to be removed from this list. And if I move from the other side, I want the alpha to be removed from that list that I removed from. So we need to find out which list we are dragging the item from. So we want to add a variable when we're creating this item that will basically tell you which, if it's coming from the left Dropbox or if it's coming from the right Dropbox. And so if we push in the variable, we can call this current widget. And this is going to be of type user widget. Let me get that object reference there. And this needs to be instance editable and expose and spawn. Compile and save that. Now we can do this right away here. We're going to drag out a copy of this, get that. I'm going to cast it. We're going to cast it to the right Dropbox. And if that fails, if it's not the right Dropbox, if there is the left Dropbox, we want to can do this. We can copy that and we're gonna cast to left Dropbox. There we go. As the right Dropbox, we want the scroll box. And we want to remove child. And what child do we want to remove? Well, we want to remove this. So we can take self here, copy that, and drag it off and put it in there. So let's take Shift A there and get them lined up a little bit so we clean it up a little bit. And we're going to drag off from success into remove child here. And now we're going to do the same thing here. Get scroll box. And remove child. And we're going to get a copy of self. Place that in there. Connect the success to the remove child. I'm going to grab that one and move it into return node. And same thing here, return node. And we're going to clean this up a little bit. Take that as well. Drag that up there. We got that. I'm going to compile and save that. And then we're going to go into the left Dropbox here. And we're going to go into add our starting array. Here we go. And that's with our current widget. So we're going to get a reference to self. So this is basically saying, hey, I'm coming from the left Dropbox. That's basically what this is saying. That's where I'm located, and therefore it should work now. Take the Caesar. See, it disappears. Bravo, disappear from the list. Delta, disappear from the list. Alpha, and Echo. And of course, nothing else is working, but that was what I was going for right now. Right? All right, let's go to the right Dropbox here. And let's go to the graph here, and on the function override, we have on drop, and this is what we want. So this is basically saying, hey, what are you going to do when you're dropping off your payload? I'm going to drag off operation. We're going to cast this, cast to item. So cast to my item drag and drop is just so we can get access to the information that is provided here. And in here we can drag of as my item drag and drop and get the item name and get item amount. Get item amount. There we go. Now we're going to create a, we're going to drag off here and we're going to a widget. And it's going to be a dragged item widget. And we're going to take the item name and we're going to take the item amount. And we're going to add it to our scroll box. Get our scroll box and add child. And return value is the content, and go to return node and compile and save. So basically, if we press play here now, we take the Caesar and we drag it over here, we drop it, and we place it in here. See that? Bravo, place it. Alpha, place it. It creates a brand new widget. Right? Let's go into our left box and we're going to do the same thing here. I'm going to go into function, override, and on drop. There we go. I'm going to cast to call it item, my item, drag and drop. Connect that. Move that out of the way a little bit. I'm going to get item name and get item amount. I'm going to create a widget. And this is going to be of dragged item and item name, item amount. So what we also see here, I think I missed that in the drag and drop. Yes, we want the current widget as well. So we're going to get a reference to self. Drag that into the current widget because otherwise it won't work. Save that, and I'm going to do here, create a reference to self. Get that, connect that in there. And now we're going to take a scroll box there, and we're going to add child. There we go. And connect that. Save and compile, and if we test it out, we should be able to drag back and forth. Bravo. Look at that. It works just fine. So we actually have a drag and drop functionality now. Now, there's a problem with this though. If we drag this off screen, for example, let's say that you have not two full boxes. You have another piece of box that is down here that is not a part of these drag boxes. Or for example, you drag this off screen. Whoa, it just disappears. You know? This works fine, back and forth, but if you drag it off screen, it disappears and none to be found. So we have to fix that. So that's the next task we have to sort out. So let's go into a dragged item here, and we're going to go to our event graph. And we get something if we go into function and override. We get something called on drag cancelled. So that's what we want to do. If the drag and drop is cancelled, we want this to trigger this and something gonna happen. We want to put it back to where we were. So if we go back to this and we want to play this. So if we are taking our Bravo 72 from this stack, the red stack, and we grab it and we're placing it somewhere we're not supposed to be, we want it to automatically populate the red stack again. And if it's in green stack, and we drag it off and we place it somewhere where it's not supposed to be, we want it to automatically jump back and be populated into the green stack. So we need to know which stack it actually comes from. So let's go back into the dragged items here. So we have this current widget, where it comes from. We have that. We can get a copy of that. I'm gonna cast this first to the left Dropbox. Because we want to have the scroll box, right? Get scroll box. And if it cancels, we want to add child. And what child do we want to add? Well, we want to add this child that we actually have. So we're going to have a reference to self. Get that at the bottom here. Connect that there. All right. Now, that is if the current widget is the left Dropbox. If it's not, it's going to fail. So we want to cast it to the right one as well. Cast to right Dropbox. And we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to connect this one to the add child as well. If this is, we want to have the scroll box. And we're going to add child. Sorry, needs to go there. There we go. Drag this out a little bit. And we're going to have the reference to self. There we go. I'm going to take all these, so do Shift A, get them to be lined up a little bit. This is why I really like C++, because it gets spaghetti so fast. All right, compile and save. So the first thing that happens here now is that we have a thing. So it's actually, I got that CC16, I move it outside and it repopulates, right? Bravo, repopulate. So everything seems to work fine in this case. See what happens if I do something else here. Whoops, it actually doubles up here, right? It adds this. So at the bottom, CC16, it adds 2 of them because it adds both of cancel because it got canceled, but also we're adding a new, it both cancels and adds it. And if I move this, let's see, let's take a Bravo here that I don't have, I want to populate it here. It also add the Bravo at the bottom. So basically everything, whenever you release it somewhere, it actually cancel it. So we need to know, we want to know if we have passed it successfully or not. Have this been successful or have it not been a success? So we need to know that. So that's what we're going to do now. I'm going to do a check here. If it has been success, we do not want to create a new child. But if the drop was unsuccessful, that's when we want to be creating the child. What we're going to do is we're going to create a successful message. So drop success or success message. Basically, whenever we're dropping an item, we want to inform the item that it's been successfully dropped. Okay, I'm going to do that here. We're going to do in left Dropbox first. I'm going to add a variable. I'm going to call this success message. And this is going to be of type Boolean. And we are going to change this so it's a single. Compile and save that. And we're going to do the same thing in the right Dropbox. And success message. We also need to go into, let's compile and save that. We're going to go into my item drag and drop, because we need to know from what widget this came, and we need to pass that through the drag and drop. I'll show you what I mean. So we're going to add a new variable here. I'm going to call this org widget, original widget. Where did it come from? And it's going to be a user widget. And we are going to instantiate the editable, no, instance editable and expose to spawn. Compile and save. And in our dragged item here, where we are on drag detected, we need to refresh this guy, refresh node, so we get the org widget there, and we're going to pass in the current widget into this one. So we're also passing in the current widget with the drag and drop as well. This is so we don't have to connect, you know, sister connections straight between the right Dropbox or the left Dropbox. Now we're gonna just get it through this drag and drop functionality. Let's go into the right Dropbox here. I'm gonna get some room, a little bit room, and now we can actually get the widget. So get org widget. So now we get the widget that sent this drag and drop, and we can cast this. And this is going to be on the left Dropbox because we are in the right drop. I'm going to connect that one up here. Move these guys out of the way a little bit. So what we want to do here is we want to set success message. We want to set the message that, hey, I have been dropped. Connect that into that. Compile there and there. And we're going to do that same in the left Dropbox here. Drag this out a little bit. And get widget. There we go. And we're going to cast this to right Dropbox, because we are right now in the left Dropbox, so we know that that widget is a right Dropbox. Now, let's say that you have multiple widgets, 3 widgets that you're moving around. Then you need to cast both and see which one is actually the one that it came from. But now we don't have 2, so we know that this is going to be a right Dropbox. And we're going to set success message. And we're going to drag that up there. This is going to be a true statement. I'm going to push that in there. All right. Compile and save. So now we know that this has been a success. We have dropped it off. It is a success. We're creating the widget. We're adding the child. And that is all done. Great and dandy. Okay. So let's go into dragged item here into our event graph. So if we drag down here and get a little bit more room here, as left Dropbox, we want to drag this off. We want to get success message. So let's create a branch and connect this cast success into the branch. Connect the success message to the branch. So if it is failed, that means that it hasn't been a success. We'll connect the false to add the child. And the next thing we want to do is we want to grab this as left Dropbox, and we want to set the success message to back to false. So we want to set it back to false. And the reason is that I want to be able to be prepared and ready for the next time I'm dragging. And if I leave this as true, this will never, if I take the next item and drag it over and I miss it, it will still be true. So this will not work if this is true, and this would need to be set to false. Every time we check it, we are dropping and we're like, okay, it wasn't success. Okay, it goes down to adding a child. But the next time I drag it, if this is true, it will not create a child. But then the next time I'm failing it, it will not create a child because it will think that it's still a success. So we need to set this to failed. It's actually not. It's more complicated. I explain it more complicated than it actually is. But yeah, you know what I mean. So we're gonna do the same thing for the next one here. So I'm gonna get success message, and we're gonna take that. We're gonna do a branch, and if it's failed, we're gonna connect it into that. This one needs to be connected to that, and we're gonna set success message to false if this is true. All right. Compile, save. Let's test it out. So we're dragging it over. That works fine. Drag it over. Works fine. Drag it down here. It works fine. Drag it over here. It works. We can drop it wherever we want. And it's just copying one time. It is a success. And yeah, that's it. We can drag it outside. It's copying in. So it is a total success, and we have now a drag and drop functionality that works pretty good. Now there are more things we can do with this, and that's what I'm going to do in the absolutely next video. What I want to do is build on top of this, and I'm going to show you guys how to use the shift button. When you press the shift and drag it, I want us to be able to split the stack. So I want to be able to take this echo, for example, press shift, grab it, move it over. I don't want to be able to choose how many I actually want to move over. If I only want to move 40, I want this to be 40. The remaining I want to be staying in this other column. And that's going to be the next drag and drop tutorial I do here. So stay tuned for that. And if you want to see how that happens, why don't you click that subscribe button, and I'll see you next time. Until then, I'm SwapPop Gaming. Have a good one.